They say good things come in threes. I don't know who they are, and I bet the person who came up with that saying never took 3 swift kicks in a row to the bollocks, but there is some truth in there. It's certainly been true in the case of some of the greatest wrestling trilogies of the past. Oh, you want some proof? Then boy do I have a video for you. Because I'm Sam Driver from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 best pro wrestling match trilogies. Join us! Number 10, Seth Rollins vs. Cody Rhodes. Honorable mentions must go to Seth's trilogy with Edge and Cody's trilogy with Brock Lesnar, both of which were exceptional but just missed the cut. Instead, we've opted to include the 3 Rollins vs. Rhodes matches from 2023, which kicked off when the American Nightmare returned as Seth's mystery but not entirely surprising opponent at WrestleMania 38. Perhaps best remembered for the earth-shattering pop Cody received when his music hit, it would be unwise to switch off after that, because these two had a 20-minute blinder that stood out as one of the best matches of WrestleMania weekend. Their rematch at Backlash wasn't too shabby either, as the two men opened the show with another 20-minuter that set the bar so high, the rest of the roster found it difficult to measure up to it for the rest of the night. With Rhodes having 2 victories over Rollins, they met for the 3rd and final time inside Hell in a Cell. Not only was the match a bona fide classic in its own right, it'll live long in the memory for the fact that Cody, who picked up another W, competed in it despite having suffered a pec tear and sporting a torso the color of Barney the dinosaur. Number 9, John Cena vs. Kevin Owens. That John Cena, eh? What's he like? Always holding down talent for his own benefit, never putting anyone over, having the same match over and over and over again, and... Wait, what's this? A trilogy with NXT star Kevin Owens that immediately made the prize fighter on the main roster? Well, I never! Owens may have built a legacy on the indies as Kevin Steen, but hanging with the US champion at Elimination Chamber, not to mention pinning him clean as a sheet, established the then NXT champion as a major deal. The two met in a much-anticipated rematch at the following month's Money in the Bank, and while the match was every bit as good as the original, some fans were irked by the Cena wins lol result. But KO's post-match attack at least meant we'd get the rubber match at Battleground. It was another stellar offering too, if not a shade inferior to the first two, with the decision to have Cena go over once again raising a few eyebrows. Regardless, they were 3 excellent matches, and though he may have lost the feud outright, Owens was more than fine in the long run. Number 8, John Cena vs. AJ Styles. Oh hello, what's this? Is it John Cena having a triumvirate of thrillers with an indie veteran who made his name in other promotions? Where have I seen this before? 1 year after elevating Owens in his maiden main roster feud, Big Match John gave the stamp of authenticity to AJ Styles. Their first singles match at Money in the Bank 2016 was pretty damn good, and hinted at the heights the two would reach in subsequent outings, the phenomenal one picking up the W following interference from the club. The crowd were positively molten for the rematch at SummerSlam, and their enthusiasm was repaid with a 5-star affair that had the Barclays Center losing its mind down the near-fall-filled closing stretch, ending when AJ pinned Cena after a phenomenal forearm. But their SummerSlam scorcher was arguably topped at the 2017 Royal Rumble, where Styles defended the WWE title against the face that runs the place. In a match that somewhat incredibly never left the ring, AJ and Cena pieced together another banger that saw Cena tie Ric Flair's record by becoming a 16-time world champion. They did have one more singles match, by the way, another 20-minute cracker on SmackDown over a year later, which is also worth seeking out. Number 7, Kurt Angle vs. Brock Lesnar. When WWE signed Brock Lesnar to the most lucrative developmental deal in history in the year 2000, they knew for a fine fact that they would one day book the NCAA Division I heavyweight champion against Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. And what better stage for their first meeting than the main event of WrestleMania? Of course, the dream match was almost a nightmare, with Angle entering it with a broken neck and Lesnar almost ending his own career with a shooting star press gone horribly wrong. But from bell to bell, the two amateur standouts delivered and put on a match more than worthy of headlining a stacked card. After Kurt came back from neck surgery, his first order of business was regaining the WWE title, which he did in a triple threat match with Brock and Big Show at Vengeance. Lesnar then turned heel, setting up another singles match for SummerSlam. Once again, the action was very good and Angle retained his title. And on the September 18th edition of SmackDown, the two men clashed in a rare 1-hour Iron Man match, putting every ounce of energy into a 60-minute clinic where Brock regained the gold. Number 6, the Hardys vs. the Dudleys vs. Edge and Christian. At No Mercy 1999, Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys stole the show and made television history with the first ever tag team ladder match, which served as the finals of the Terry Invitation Tournament, or TIT, because tits. The bar and the stakes were raised at WrestleMania 2000, however, when the Dudley Boys entered the fray in a triangle tag team ladder match that also involved tables. The best thing by a mile at that particular Mania, WWE realized they were onto a winner and booked the rematch for SummerSlam, adding chairs to make it the first ever TLC match. Once again blowing everything else on the show away, the three teams had a match of the year contender that featured all manner of dangerous and innovative stunts never before attempted. And just how the hell were they going to top it? Well, at WrestleMania X7, of course, when WWE booked TLC 2 for the grandest stage of them all. Somehow upping the innovation and the danger, Matt, Jeff, Bubba, Devon, E, and C, not to mention Spike Dudley, Lita, and Rhino, did everything in their power to steal the show and put a bow on one of the damnedest trilogies in WWE history. A 4-team TLC, also featuring Chris's Jericho and Benoit on SmackDown a couple of months later, deserves an honorable mention. Number 5, FTR vs. the Briscoes. There was perhaps no act that defined the spirit of Ring of Honor quite like the Briscoes. Jay and Mark had been there pretty much since the beginning, and after 20 years of building Ring of Honor into what it had become, the brothers were defending not just the promotion's tag titles, but its honor, no pun intended, against outsiders FTR. Their first match at Supercard of Honor 2022 was a hard-hitting war of attrition that rightfully received a standing ovation from all in attendance, as the two teams showed respect for what they'd put each other through in a tag team match that was pretty damn close to perfect. But could they match or even top it at Death Before Dishonor a few months later with a 2 out of 3 falls stipulation attached? Going twice as long, but by no means feeling like it was a single second longer than it needed to be, it was a very different match that flew by and had everyone biting during the final fall, which went to Dax and Cash. They settled their feud at Final Battle in the most remarkable double dog collar match that was bloody, violent, brilliant, and ended with the Briscoes regaining their titles. An exceptional trilogy in its own right, it has added meaning given the dog collar match was the second last of Jay's life. Number 4, CM Punk vs. Samoa Joe. Ring of Honor in the early to late 2000s really was a special time in independent wrestling. Not only did it play host to some of the best wrestling on the planet, but the fledgling company really put the effort in when it came to presenting its world title as truly important. That was especially true when Samoa Joe held it during his epic reign, which made his trilogy of matches with CM Punk that much better. The two indie standouts went to an hour-long draw in their first major meeting at the aptly named World Title Classic. Then the Mad Bastards did it again! Joe vs. Punk 2 4 months later, an event built around the sequel which measured up to expectations and then some. The Samoan submission machine was finally able to put the straight-edge superstar away at All-Star Extravaganza 2 months after that, ending a trilogy of matches that did much to enhance the reputations of both Punk and Joe, not to mention Ring of Honor as a promotion itself. The key thing that made them great was that no one match was the same, and each one built off of the last one, making them intriguing from a strategy and psychology standpoint as much as for the in-ring action. Number 3, Kenny Omega vs. Kazuchika Okada. Oh, but Sam, Omega and Okada had 4 singles matches in New Japan, I hear you say. And you're right, but were we really gonna leave this one off? Plus, if we take out their incredible G1 match, we're left with 3 over the IWGP World title. And that's a trilogy, baby! Two of the best wrestlers of their, or in fact any generation, the Cleaner and the Rainmaker, went to war over one of the most prestigious prizes in the game at a time when New Japan was experiencing a real purple patch. Match 1 took place at Wrestle Kingdom 11, and really, what else can you say? It's Omega and Okada headlining the biggest show of the year and throwing everything they have for 45 minutes in their attempt to break Dave Meltzer's star rating system. Or at least his brain. 5 months later, at Dominion 2017, they went to a 1-hour time limit draw in another breathless blinder that completely knackered me out just watching it. Then there was the G1 match, another typically amazing effort, before the IWGP title trilogy wrapped up at Dominion 2018, with a 2 out of 3 falls match that went over an hour and acted as the perfect finale for not just their series, but Okada's all-timer of a title reign too. Number 2, The Rock vs. Steve Austin. Though Steve Austin and The Rock were rivals during the Attitude Era and actually met in a singles setting many times, their trilogy of WrestleMania matches, 2 of them main events, is seen as something else entirely. Their first Mania meeting came at 15, when the Texas Rattlesnake challenged the Brahma Bull for the WWE title. Even if Austin was in such a bad mood due to his divorce that he forgot his vest and had to enter wearing a t-shirt, he and The Rock still put on one hell of a show and pretty much saved what had been a rather dismal Mania overall. The next time they met at WrestleMania, things were far from dismal, but Austin vs. Rock, with Stone Cold once again gunning for the Great One's WWE title, capped off what had been one of the greatest wrestling pay-per-views ever with a sports entertainment roller coaster, which nonetheless had a polarizing finish as Austin turned heel and aligned with Mr. McMahon. 2 years later, Austin did the honors for Rock in the last match of his full-time in-ring career. A fitting send-off that only didn't headline due to concerns over Austin's physical condition. And number 1, Ric Flair vs. Ricky Steamboat. 2 of the very best to ever do it, Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat made for natural rivals and wrestled each other countless times from the late 70s to the mid-90s. And while there are various other televised offerings to choose from, their trilogy of matches from 1989 stands as, arguably, 3 of the best professional wrestling matches, period. The Dragon had resurfaced in the NWA after leaving WWE and immediately set his sights on the Nature Boy and his 10 pounds of gold. Steamboat beat Flair to bag the belt in the main event of the Chi-Town Rumble pay-per-view in what, at a shade over 23 minutes, was the shortest match of the trilogy. Shortest, but to many, the best, as the pace was off the charts and the action crisper and more exciting than you're liable to find anywhere else. The rematch took place at the 6th Clash of the Champions special, Ragin' Cajun, under best 2 out of 3 falls rules, with Ricky beating Rick 2-1 in an almost hour-long match that was very different, but just as good as the one at Chi-Town Rumble. They then wrapped things up at Wrestle War with another predictably amazing battle that saw Nate regain the gold. God, just thinking about it makes me want to watch it all again. Quick, someone get me a plate of wings and a mushroom-flavored energy drink while I load up the DVD player.